Any announcements? Are there any announcements?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make one announcement regarding the treasurer's office, if I may.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. So I'm excited to announce that on November 3rd, we'll be welcoming a new deputy treasurer who is David Shear, who is currently the state director for Representative Becca Ballant. Dave is going to join us in November. He has a lot of state experience, having worked as general counsel of the Cannabis Control Board and as a director in the Attorney General's office, and privately practiced law for a number of years in Burlington as well. Really strong leader, really good policymaker, good legislative leader. So looking forward to welcoming him to our office, and wanted to let the board know, and we'll make a public announcement about that probably early next week.
Thank you. Other announcements? Okay, to the agenda. Do we need to make any modifications to today's printed agenda? Hearing no modifications, do we have a motion to accept the agenda as written for October 9th, 2025?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for September 11th, 2025. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing no discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes for September 11th, 2025, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are approved. At this point, we will open the floor for any public comment. And we will close the public comment. Welcome, VPIC. You're next on the hit parade, VPIC attendance report, and then the VPIC presentation.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon, everybody. Tim, did you want to handle the attendance report?
Yeah, just jump in on that really quick. The attendance report is required to be submitted to the boards each year. We don't vote on it or anything else. We just put it on the agenda so that we can document that it was shared with this board.
So with regard to the broader VPIC presentation, Tom is unable to join us today, but first of all, would like to thank you all for the opportunity to have this dialogue. It's very helpful to us to stay in touch with you, our biggest client, and really appreciate the two-way dialogue. I think it's important that you all understand what we're doing and how we're thinking about things out there in the investment climate or investment environment. I do have a deck. I think I can find it here. That I won't dwell on, but maybe just hit a few high points. You've all seen our org chart before. What I wanted to start with was our budget request that we're working on now for fiscal year 27. Governor has given us guidance of budget increase of no more than 3%. We're right at 3.1. We'll probably shave that down to 3% by the time we get to the legislature, but it's really just a logical extension of the programs and resources that are in place currently. Nothing too controversial or interesting there. Our goals, again, try to over 5-year periods exceed the actuarial assumed rate of return. On a risk-adjusted basis, 5 years beat this benchmark, 60% ACWI IMI, which is a global benchmark for equities, and 40% bond index. In reality, what we're trying to do here is maximize returns for the pension plans within prudent levels of risk and liquidity. The 7% discount rate is interesting, and it's related to what we're doing. But what we're really trying to do is generate the strongest returns we can while still keeping on hand enough liquidity to pay benefits and meet current obligations, all at a risk level that's consistent with the fiduciary's risk appetite. You can see our performance here on slide 6. Another good, strong fiscal year performance with a 10.71% return, well above the 7% discount rate for the fiscal year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15-year periods. And for 2024, we believe our program's working. Certainly, it's been a strong investment climate, and that's been helpful. But as we get into how we're thinking about the environment and the economy, I think you'll see some of this come together. Our private equity portfolio for the second year in a row, this press release we put out in July, again, number one in the country among large public pension funds with a 10-year return of 18.8%, well above number two. There are some pretty large and sophisticated players in here, so we're very honored and privileged and fortunate to be at the top of this list again for the second year in a row. We shared this with you a year or so ago. I know you all are working and resolving it, but this shows the expected volatility in the ADEC as we approach the end of the amortization period. Tim and Siegel, I know, have been working on resolving this, and if we can be helpful in those analyses and discussions, we're helpful to do so. This chart shows the different pieces that we put together into an investment strategy. I know you've seen this before, but I think it's worth a quick review. On the vertical axis is expected return for each of these asset classes. On the horizontal axis is expected risk. As you would expect, as you move out the risk frontier and take on more risk, you would expect to be paid more. We revalidate these capital market assumptions every year when we do our asset allocation studies and asset liability studies. We're pretty confident in them. But if our goal was just about maximizing returns, you can see these two dots in the upper left or upper right here, emerging market equity and private equity. We'd put the whole portfolio there and call it a day. But as I mentioned, we're actually trying to maximize returns with improved levels of risk and liquidity. So liquidity comes from down here in the lower left. Core fixed income is our downturn hedge. We have some cash, we have some tips. These are typically not very exciting securities when equity markets are roaring ahead, but we're really grateful that we have them when there's an economic dislocation. And then you can see other pieces in the middle of the spectrum here: real estate, private credit, farmland, emerging market debt. That leads us to our current asset allocation. We have three broad asset classes, 71% or so of the fund in growth assets, things like stocks, largely indexed, non-core real estate, private credit, private equity. These three illiquid assets, we believe, continue to be strong drivers of return. We expect to be paid more because these assets are illiquid versus similar assets in liquid, publicly traded markets. And we can show, in fact, that we are getting the liquidity premium over the long run. Downturn hedging, I mentioned core bonds. Again, these tend to be not very exciting until you really need them, like we did in the COVID sell-off of March 2020. Global equity markets had sold off by 30%. Our core bonds were up 10%, functioning exactly as intended. And then our inflation hedge portfolio, Treasury inflation protection securities, core real estate, infrastructure, and farmland. We think of core real estate and non-core real estate as different asset classes. Non-core real estate is riskier, typically has more leverage on it, typically lower occupancy, and a lot of opportunities for us to improve those properties to generate returns. Core real estate tends to be high quality, fully leased buildings that generate a consistent cash flow for us. Here you can see the illiquidity premium. This shows in the green lines our returns from private markets versus the blue lines our returns from public markets. And you can see that over time we consistently outperform those publicly equivalent returns by hundreds of basis points. Again, that's been very helpful in helping us to generate those long-term returns we showed you earlier. In addition to all this, we continue to focus on governance of the program, engagement with companies, voting our proxies. We spent a lot of time thinking about decarbonization, about boards considering diverse slates of candidates, about labor fairness. And we think about them not because they're important social issues, but we think about them because we think they are important investment risks. The global energy transition, for example, we think is a once in a lifetime disruption and investment opportunity that if we don't participate in, we will be left behind. Indeed, we're seeing Europe and Asia, for example, continuing to power ahead with renewable technology, solar panels, wind generated electricity, and we're investing in those projects through our infrastructure program. We have seen some pushback domestically on things like DEI and climate transition. We remain steadfast in our view that these are important investment risks and important investment opportunities. You may recall a year or so ago, we received a subpoena from the House Judiciary Committee accusing us of being part of a climate cartel with 130 other institutional investors, quote, conspiring to keep fossil fuels in the ground, and asking us a series of 10 questions or so. And our response to those questions were very easy, because we've been consistent in our view from the beginning of this program that this is not about promoting social justice or slowing climate change. This is about generating investment returns for the members and beneficiaries of the pension plans. And these trends that we're seeing are significant risks to the companies in which we invest. We expect those companies to be mitigating those risks. We use our proxy votes to engage with them. We also conducted a comprehensive study of decarbonization with the Makita consulting firm a year or two ago, and they came out with 4 options for us. Option 1 was do nothing. Option 2 was divest of fossil fuels. Option 3 was decarbonize the VPIC portfolio. Option 4 was seek to decarbonize the global economy and invest in it. So we're pursuing options 3 and 4, decarbonize our portfolio, again, for the benefit of the pension plan beneficiaries and to maximize returns, and also to promote decarbonization of the global economy by investing in things like renewable infrastructure. So this document lays out our plan in doing so. You will notice that we're not committing to a net zero date like many of our peers did. Many came out early on and said we're going to be carbon neutral by 2050. Our view of that is that that's a flawed approach for 2 reasons. Number 1, it lets folks off the hook for 25 years. Number 2, we don't feel like we know enough about current and future technologies to actually pick a date. Maybe the date comes much sooner. Instead, what we're doing is watching development of technologies, especially in renewable infrastructure, and investing in them. So more to come here. But 2 key important points on this document. Number 1 is fiduciary duty, emphasizing again, this is about investment returns, about our fiduciary duty to the members and beneficiaries of the plan. And then long-term horizon, this is about investing for the long term, defeasing these liabilities that in many cases may be in excess of 80 years. So with that, what I wanted to do, if I can stop sharing. If there are questions on that, I'm happy to take them or go off in any direction. But what I wanted to do also was talk a little bit about OPEBs, or other post-employment benefits. These are the assets associated with the post-retirement healthcare obligations. The Treasurer's Office has been managing these assets for the last 4 or 5 years or so. There's a total of around $360 million invested across VSTRS and VSTRS OPEB. Teachers OPEB, I think, is around $150 million. VPIC has been historically involved, but I would say with a very light touch. In the spring, the Treasurer reached out to us and asked us if we would be interested in taking a more active role. We expressed great support for that and have been working with his staff in kind of charting out what that might look like as we move ahead over the next year or so. Ultimately, we would need legislation in place to move formal oversight of OPEBs to VPIC, and Tim Duggan and his team and Justin St. James have been working certainly with us and with our council in drafting legislation that would do that. But we think there's an interim period where we can be helpful as well. We have kicked off an asset liability study of the OPEB liabilities to help us better understand what those demographics and cash flows look like. And then we believe that will enable us to develop a strategic allocation for the assets tied to those liabilities that better reflects the demographics and financial characteristics of those liabilities. Once we have a strategic allocation framework in place that the treasurer would agree to as sole fiduciary, we could then begin to think about a pacing plan for private market commitments. Again, private markets have been a big driver of our returns over the last 10 years, and we would expect that to continue to be the case. Certainly has the potential to do so for the OPEBs. And the higher expected return for OPEBs means a higher discount rate for those assets or for those liabilities and a lower final liability number. When we think about once that pacing plan is in place and we better understand the ability of the OPEB assets to tolerate illiquidity, we would then begin to think about making commitments to private market assets, specifically private equity and private credit. Currently, there is some private equity and private credit exposure in those OPEB assets, but by engaging VPIC more in the underwriting of opportunities, we believe this provides a more powerful tool set, and specifically in the private equity and private credit space. Just as an example, there are times when we, as a large institutional investor, are offered, I would call them, significant fee breaks, not just because of our asset size, but because we can be nimble. A lot of new funds are looking for a public fund to anchor their program. There's a private secondaries fund that we invested in a few years ago where they actually cut the fee in half for us. So instead of paying 2% on the fund, we got in for 1% for the life of the fund because, again, they wanted an anchor investor. We think those opportunities would be compelling for OPEB assets as well. Before we get legislation in place, any such investment opportunities would need to be run by the treasurer and approved by the treasurer, and we would certainly sit down with you and your team, Mike, and walk you through what we're thinking about. But we're looking at the Dover 12 secondaries fund right now, potentially looking at a VPIC commitment in December, January timeframe. It seems that preliminarily like that's the right investment profile for the OPEB assets. And we would certainly, as we work through that, be more in touch with you on that opportunity. Phase 2 would really require legislation. Again, Tim and his team have drafted that legislation. I would envision, and Tim and I've talked about this, shopping the legislation around with constituent groups and other stakeholders to get buy-in before we get to the legislature. Assuming we get that legislation in place, we think there are significant opportunities for additional efficiencies. Number one, formalizing a more comprehensive and robust risk management framework and asset liability study process, wherein we're specifically tying the strategic asset allocation targets for these assets back to the actuarial valuations for the liabilities. Combining the consulting resources at RBK into one agreement, we would expect that generates some fee savings. But I think even more powerful than the fee savings is the thought process and the synergies of having one team on all of these assets. We would envision bringing the assets on, again, after legislation, as sleeves number 5 and 6 into the VPIC portfolio. Right now, we have 4 sleeves, each of the 3 pension plans plus the PAAA supplemental COLA fund. We think combining those under one consulting relationship gets us some efficiencies and, again, a more comprehensive risk management framework and a more comprehensive overview of how these assets are performing. I think more to come on all of this. We're at the very early stages, and I thank you, Mike, for your outreach in the spring, and Tim and Justin for your help on drafting these things. But look forward to working with you as we get through the session. I said a lot. Happy to take any questions or take the discussion off in any direction.
For the OPEB funds, currently, Mike, that the entire investment portfolio is being handled by Treasury staff?
Yeah, that's right, John.
Okay. So prior to that, though, before VPIC left the Treasurer's office, was that sort of being combined between staff and VPIC, or?
It's before my time, John.
Oh, okay.
To ask if Tim knows.
Yeah, so I kind of go back to about when I came on board, when we were funding these with a pay-as-you-go model, and we actually had an interfund loan. We didn't have any assets in the fund, and we were hoping to get back to zero. We did that, I think, in the late 20 teens. And then we were investing these funds as part of a trust investment account, which is a
That's right.
collective instrument that we have a lot of small state trusts in that is managed by Mike and the team here. And when Eric was within the treasurer's office, Eric would and his team would assist with that. This effort, I think, is really, we could have done this at the time when we started pre-funding with Act 114. But at that time, the VPIC was still relatively new as an entity. We had a lot of questions we had to work through on the logistics of this, and we had all of 114, all the benefits, everything going on there. So I think the decision was made to hold and start maintain the status quo and start investing these assets with some support from VPIC. I view this as the next logical extension now that the pool of assets is getting larger, and it's going to get, sizably larger soon. It really makes sense to continue moving this over to the commission that's in charge of investing. And so it just seems, when you look back from, going from a loan that started this effort 10 years ago to where we are now, it's really incredible, to be honest. And I think this is the next logical step.
Excellent. Perry, you had a question?
No, I was just going to give a much less complete answer to what Tim just said.
Yeah, there's no question in my mind. I think this is very logical, the logical next step going forward with this. Any questions for Eric?
No question, but just to thank you. Very, very informative.
Yeah, I really appreciate having these meetings to get information, updated where you are with the investments, and the way you've laid out the carbon neutral investments is excellent. I that is so solid. That it really takes the wind out of the sails of people that want divestiture of specific areas.
Well, we appreciate the dialogue, and certainly think it's important that you all understand how we're thinking about what we're doing. So thank you. Really appreciate the time.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Take care. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, HealthSpring update.
Great, and I'll start here, and we do have Steve May and Shauna Rink from HealthSpring with us to help with the update. So since we've last talked in September, a lot's been going on, and so it's been weekly, if not daily, contact with Shauna and her team, and we've started doing our outreach efforts. I think we are finished our 4th online webinar as of today, which I'm looking forward to hearing the feedback on, because I know that just ended just before this effort. But what I was thinking of doing, and having Shauna help walk through, is put up, I'm going to share my screen, put up some slides just to talk through some of the steps we're doing, and then have folks ask any questions. So do folks see my screen that says HealthSpring update? Yes. Great. Shauna, do you want to start walking through some of the things that we've been working on for the past few weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. So good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for inviting me today to provide an update. We're pleased to share that the implementation is progressing very well. Our communication campaign has officially rolled out to ensure retiree awareness and engagement. But I wanted to just share just a few highlights with you today. So the very first, starting with the communication campaign. So we did create before we launched the website, and the customer service line, we actually created a flyer so that we could post on the VSTRS website, and that included the key hospitals in Greater Vermont, including in-network and providers that are accepting the plan. So that includes University of Vermont, and so sorry about that. So we are looking, so that actually is posted to the VSTRS website, and we're looking to expand that to include provider groups under the key hospital health systems in the Vermont area and the surrounding area that are either in network or accepting the plan. And then we also created a benefit comparison that captures the features and the benefits of HealthSpring Medicare Advantage, including a plan comparison. And that's actually going to be mailed to the retirees to their homes in mid to late October. And that's also posted to the VSTRS website. So we wanted to make sure that as we're mailing things, that we also post them to the website as they become available. We also have already approved the pre-enrollment kits. So those have actually been ordered. That it will include the detailed information for the retirees on each of the plans. So it includes a benefit summary, the formulary addendum, including the supplemental drugs, the evidence of coverage, and those are going to be mailed in late October. And again, posted to the VSTRS website in PDF formats. And then we also created an FAQ with the most commonly asked questions by Medicare Advantage customers based on our experience, but we are creating a second version. So we are adding questions that are commonly asked during the virtual meetings. So again, we'll have a second version of that, and we'll continue to update that. We may even have a third or fourth version. So that's kind of a working document. And then we also launched the healthspring.com/group Medicare. So that went live on October the 1st, and that includes the general group Medicare Advantage information. The members will actually have access to a myhealthspring.com app that will include their specific provider network, pharmacy network, formulary, drug list, supplemental buy-up list once they go live on January 1st. But for now, they can access general information and where they can find the provider and the pharmacy network, the base formulary. It doesn't unfortunately include the supplemental drug list because that varies client by client, but that will be posted to the VSTRS website. We did have a little technical difficulty when we launched the healthspring.com. So they couldn't, unfortunately, right now, they cannot do a provider search. That is expected to be finished or resolved by the end of the month, but they still can access PDF network provider directories. And we've also posted or will be posting those provider directories for the key markets like Vermont, Florida, and New Hampshire on the VSTRS website.
Yeah,
we
Shauna,
are, oh,
if
yeah,
I could
go
just
ahead.
jump in there. So
Yeah.
we have done one revamp since we initially launched our website with information about HealthSpring. We've updated it once, and we're working with HealthSpring. I'm hoping by end of day tomorrow we're going to get this second update to include all these specific, like the formulary and everything else specific to VSTRS on our website. So we're really trying to. There's a lot of information coming out and a lot of work that we're doing, and we're trying to keep that website on pace with that so that it's always got the latest and greatest. Thanks, Shauna.
Yeah,
So
to jump in with a question. So as people contact me, I'm thinking of the Vermont Retired Educators members. Should I be directing them to the healthspring.com group MA, or should we be focusing on the VSTRS or both? I know one of the virtual, I attended the second virtual meeting, and people who had jumped onto the HealthSpring website, and they were concerned because the benefits that they saw there were the general benefits, not specific to the VSTRS plan. So I just want to make sure that I'm giving accurate information about where to get information specific to the VSTRS plan.
Yeah, so and Tim, you can jump in and let me know if you disagree, but my recommendation would be to refer them to the VSTRS website because that's where we're going to be hosting all of the information so they can see everything as it becomes available and not, in piecemeal like mailings and then, go to this website where they can find actually everything in one site, and it will be live links to the specific, because when you go to the general healthspring.com/group Medicare, you actually have to navigate and know what option to pick. So because we have multiple different pharmacy networks and we have multiple different formularies, so it's just important for us to help alleviate any frustration so that they can quickly get to the information that's specific to VSTRS. And again, once January 1st comes, they go live, they'll have access to the myhealthspring.com where they will have their specific information.
That's helpful. Thank you. That's excellent.
Yeah. And then we also went live on our HealthSpring customer service. So that went live on October the 7th. So the customer service representatives are accepting phone calls and answering questions. And we are now able, during all the virtual meetings and then the future meetings and upcoming communications, to share that phone number with all the retirees. And then as Tim and I mentioned, the VSTRS website is where we're posting all of the communications as they become available, and strongly encourage retirees to go to that site. And then we just concluded our 4th virtual meeting today, and I'm pleased to share that we had the highest attendance of all of the meetings. So we had up to 50 retirees that joined that meeting, and we had very strong engagement. So strong engagement verbally by asking questions, but then also a lot of activity in the chat. So during the virtual meetings, Jessica Moore does the verbal presentation, and then we open up the chat so I can answer questions, as Jessica is presenting. So that becomes a very active site where they can ask questions. And again, we're utilizing that to help enhance the FAQ. And then we've seen strong attendance. Today was the highest attendance that we've seen, but we've have on average about 30 per meeting. And again, strong engagement, good engagement. And because of that attendance, we are hosting a 5th virtual meeting. So that's going to be held on Tuesday, October the 14th. And then we're kicking off our in-person meetings, and those will begin on October the 20th, and we're hosting 4 of those. And I believe Nicole had mentioned today that you're doing a press release to announce it's either the 5th virtual meeting or the in-person meetings.
The in-person meetings, we're going to
Okay.
put one together for those, to just get the word out a little bit better.
Very good. And then we are having weekly implementation calls every Wednesday where the entire VSTRS team and the HealthSpring team gather together to make sure that everything is on track and talk about everything related to the implementation. But as Tim mentioned, I think we talk almost every day or touch base in some way, whether it's multiple emails or calls, text, etc. So we are in constant communication. We also are requesting some data from VBA. And we just received confirmation that Express Scripts and Optum are in contact with each other. So that's very good progress, but that's going to help us minimize disruption. So we're requesting 3 different files, a claim history file, and that will help us with prior authorization requirements. So we'll be able to look at the medical history, and if a particular drug requires prior authorization, we're going to be able to look back at that medical history to see if it satisfies the prior authorization requirement. So it's not going to be a 100%, but it will help minimize a lot of the prior authorization noise. We're also going to be doing open mail order refill transfers. So that requires a pharmacist in charge with Optum and Express Scripts, and that is going to be on January the 3rd based on Optum's capacity, but they're going to try to get it by January 1 or January the 2nd. We also requested a
Shauna,
file. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Could you just explain a little bit more what that means, the open refill transfer?
Yeah, so basically, if a retiree has a mail order that is currently being processed through Optum, the pharmacist in charge will transfer that to Express Scripts so that it will ensure continuity and they don't have to go to Express Scripts to implement a new mail order. So we'll transfer it from, it's almost like when you transfer when I have, or someone has a prescription and they transfer it from, say, a CVS pharmacy in Indiana to a CVS pharmacy in Florida. So it allows the pharmacists to talk to each other. So I think that will help a lot and minimize some of the disruption that the retirees would experience. And then we're also going to be notifying retirees if they are impacted by a non-formulary drug, and there are formulary alternatives, and they do have a process in place, a transition policy in the event that the formulary drug does not work for them. They can actually work with HealthSpring and their physician to get an exception. But then we'll also notify retirees if they're impacted by a tier change as well. So VBA data requests are underway to help minimize any disruption.
And VBA is responding. I just had a conversation with Pam Getzy today, and so we are making sure that we're keeping this line of communication open. And so far, it looks like it's going well, and we're just keeping on it. Steve's doing a great job, kind of dogging that back and forth to make sure that we're doing this transition in an orderly way.
And then between Tim, Justin, and I and our legal team, we have successfully negotiated the red lines, and the final contract is in the hands of our HealthSpring legal counsel for final review. Not anticipating any issues, but just want to make sure that, because there were multiple different documents, and now that we have everything assembled together in one contract, just want to make sure that our legal counsel has an opportunity to review that. So just waiting on an update there. And then we also sent our contract to University of Vermont Medical System or Medical Center, and they've already provided their red lines. So that negotiation is underway. So both parties are fully committed to having a contract by January 1st. And again, negotiations, red lines can kind of they can go, a couple months. So just we're going to stay close to that just to make sure that we're on track and meet the 1/1 effective date as much as possible.
Shauna, could
But
you
no issues so far.
Could you explain what red lines are?
Yes. So basically, if once we send the contract to University of Vermont Medical Center, they will review language and make modifications based on their needs or expectations.
Great, thank you.
And then we'll have an opportunity to either accept or modify to come to a mutually acceptable language.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then we have also, so thank you, Tim, for bringing these opportunities to our awareness. But we have had 2 sponsorships. So we were a supporting sponsor for the Vermont Association of Hospitals and Health Systems. That event was on September the 24th. And then we are a platinum sponsor for the Vermont Medical Society meeting on November the 7th. through the 8th. And we will also have individuals from our HealthSpring contracting and provider relations team that will be attending that the Vermont Medical Society meeting. So we're very pleased about that. And that's definitely going to help with our brand awareness. So Tim, if you want to move to the next slide, that is really the top concern that we have thus far. So it's the HealthSpring brand awareness. We sometimes will hear that a provider says they have not heard about Cigna. So what we're doing as part of the resolution, in addition to the sponsorships, we are doing a HealthSpring, potentially co-branded with VSTRS, provider education to all key hospitals and highly utilized providers. So those details are being finalized, but that will definitely be over the next coming months and prior to the effective date. And then we're also leveraging our provider liaison team that as retirees have questions about their providers, we reach out on their behalf and educate them about the HealthSpring Medicare Advantage plan. And then we also have a provider inquiry and outreach process where Krista and VSTRS and the team can send emails directly to our provider inquiry team, and they will reach out on the provider or on the member's behalf, contact the provider based on their desired contact method, whether it's by phone or email, and report that back to VSTRS. And then we'll also be keeping a spreadsheet compiled with all of the results just for reference for VSTRS as well as the team. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is that we hear pretty common themes when we do virtual meetings and in-person meetings. So the top 5 retiree questions are, is my provider in the network, which is very common? Is my drug covered? Where can I find the drug list? I live out of state. Do I still have coverage? Will my mail order prescription be transferred? So those are very common questions that we've been addressing, also included in the FAQs. I think the question that we've been getting that is an anomaly is Medicare Advantage no longer offered in Vermont? So we've been able to address that question by reassuring them that that's individual Medicare Advantage, and the group Medicare Advantage is different, and that is definitely available, and it is filed on a national basis. So that's been a question that we've received for Vermonters, as well as in the virtual meeting today. Apparently the Florida market has had some individual Medicare Advantage plans that are leaving, where we also had to address that question. Any questions or feedback?
So at a high level, I just want to say I've been really impressed with the resources that HealthSprings brought to this effort. I feel like whenever we're asking for something, it's there. They've been nimble. We're working on creative ways to get the word out, per the comment about HealthSpring brand awareness being the number one issue we're hearing. So from where I sit, I think it's going really well. I think that's in no small amount due to the work that Nicole and Shauna and Steve and the whole team have been putting into it. So pretty happy with where we are right now. But if folks are hearing anything, we want to hear about it, and happy to take any suggestions as well.
Well, I attended one of the virtual meetings, and I thought the way it was handled and the information that was shared and how quickly responses were done on the chat, and then also when people could figure out how to turn their mics from mute, ask questions. And you handled the frustration of people that are not accustomed to doing virtual meetings like that just incredibly well. And I thought the difficult questions that were asked were answered and as timely as possible. And so I just want to say, I think the virtual meetings are, in my opinion, are great. And then also then being able to direct all this information to the VSTRS website, I think is fabulous. And the website, I think, Bill, you're probably the man behind the curtain there, has been fabulous. The layout, it's intuitive, the links are great. So I'm very pleased. And I think, looking forward, I think people are going to start, because of this change, start going to the VSTRS website a heck of a lot more now, because of the information that's available.
Right, thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, and thank you, Bill. So Bill has been so helpful. And one of the other things that we're doing with the virtual meetings, we are recording, well, we've recorded all of them, but just making sure that which one has the best audio quality, and we will be posting that to the VSTRS website as well, so that they can have a pre-recorded live version available anytime.
Excellent. Questions on where we are with HealthSpring? All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Shauna. Thanks, Steve.
Next item on the agenda, Delta Dental contract extension.
I'll take this one. So we have been working with Delta Dental over the past 3 or 4 months on an extension of the existing contract. So we contract with Delta Dental with all the systems, so the state, teachers, and municipal system, to offer dental insurance. There are 2 plans, and that the current term of the contract is up at the end of December. So we need to do, we have 2 potential extension years on the contract. So the issue that we started working on this summer with Delta was, can we, A, can we extend, and B, at what rates? In the information, I'll just quickly share a screen. In some of the information we shared in the packet, we have a history of what our rates have been with Delta Dental. And as you see, it's been held steady since 2020. There haven't been any increases in the rates. And the company basically said we can't maintain that this year. They initially proposed a 6.5% increase with a 6.5% cap for the following year. We spent a while going back and forth with them, and we ultimately got the increase for this year down to 5.4% with a 7% cap this year. Ultimately, that if the full caps are utilized under either scenario, this works out better. So it's I think it's a good deal. I think we probably did need to increase the rates a little bit. According to their analysis, we should be raising them almost 9%, but that was some of the work we did to help negotiate a lower amount. So I'll stop sharing there. One note is that per the statute, the dental program is meant to be basically revenue neutral to the state and not cost the state anything. So there's a note that we are to charge we're to make sure that our costs are covered through the rates. I can't remember exactly what it says. What we have historically done is add 0.5% to the to the rates to cover an admin fee. So what you see in the documents I sent you is what Delta will charge us. What we then do is add the 0.5% for administrative work associated with administering the plan, and that's what members are billed. So that's and we would maintain that practice here. So really, as folks probably know, there's not a lot of players in the dental insurance space. We have had a longstanding relationship with Delta Dental that's worked well for us and our members, and so our recommendation is to move forward with this extension. And the motion that we would ask the board to consider is a motion to authorize the chair to execute a contract on behalf of VSTRS with Delta Dental for Delta insurance coverage in calendar year 26 and 27, with a 5.4% increase in 2026 rates and a cap of 7% increase in 2027 rates, subject to review and approval by legal counsel and state agencies required to provide relevant contract authorizations.
Someone willing to make that motion?
Yes, so moved, Emily.
And do we have a second?
Second, Genevieve.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
And I am happy that we are not changing dental insurance providers this year.
I don't know why. Okay, next item on the agenda is legislative preview.
Thanks. So I'll just talk through this, and folks, from the Treasurer's Office can jump in and add. There are really four main areas that we are going to be advancing this year. At present, as always, things happen in the legislature, and so we will keep attuned to what's going on and react accordingly. But first on our list is always going to be to fully fund the pension and the OPEB systems. That's, sometimes goes without saying because it's such a core function, but in our state, there has been this long-lasting consensus to fully fund these systems, but I think it's always important to put that at the top of the list and continue to advance for full funding. We're currently working on our budgets with the whole team in the Treasurer's Office, and so we'll be bringing that to the board in one of the upcoming meetings this fall. I can't remember when I have that planned at present, but you'll be seeing it soon. The budget is going to be pretty. I don't think there's any surprises in there. The one ask that we are going to have for this year is going to be one new position. I joked in the VSTRS meeting that it would be Bill Meckel 2.0. I don't mean to say that there's any need for an upgrade or reboot of Bill Meckel. I just want another one, another person in that position. He's doing a great job, and there's a lot of work that we're throwing at him, and a lot of things like the governance, the actuarial work, all the work we're doing with vendors, planning for what's next, and then just the logistics and technical aspects of our pension administration system are all things that are in that wheelhouse. So that's one of our initiatives that we're going to be bringing forward as part of our budget. And then two substantive areas. The one Eric talked about at length was the change in how we invest the OPEBs. I guess it's not a change as much as a sort of a reallocation of responsibility. And so that's something that we intend to take to the legislature this year. And the last thing is we are looking at some of the work we did with the risk assessments related to funding the pension systems and our current closed amortization period through 2038. And as those risk assessments showed, as VPIC's actuary has shown them, as we approach 2038, the risk of severe volatility in the ADEC payments becomes more real because any off-market year, we only have a smaller amount of time to work through a loss or a gain. So there are other ways to approach how we do that while maintaining our, the substance of our commitment to get to full funding in 2038. And as we were talking about it in the Treasurer's Office, I think Mike thought it was a really good idea, and Mike, I'll let you speak to it, but to really get broad stakeholder consensus to highlight what the issue is and to make sure everyone's bought into any potential solution. So the idea would be to put together a task force, sort of a streamlined version of what we did with the Act 114 task force, but with a very tightly constrained charge, not to look at all the many issues we did back then, but just to really look at our funding methodology and bring recommendations for consideration in the 27 legislative year. those are the main issues that we're looking to bring to the legislature as now. But we're still looking at it. We may have a few other things. We may add or subtract. We just wanted to give you a sense of what's on the agenda as we look at it now, so folks are aware of what we're thinking. Mike, Justin, anything should add on any of those?
I think you covered it well, unless there are questions from folks.
Harry?
Yeah, it's not exactly a question, but we've talked about this, fiddling with the amortization schedule in VPIC a fair amount. And I just wanted to highlight for the board that it's an issue that needs to be, we need to pay a lot of attention to it as it plays out. There's no reason to be suspicious of it. I think there's a lot about it that can be very good, but there's some issues that we need to be paying attention to as it plays forward. And I just wanted to kind of flag that for everyone as something to be attentive to down the line.
Thanks.
Sure.
Other questions?
Yeah, Perry, it's funny, and sometimes I think it's so simple, but then you look at all the different flavors of things you can do, and there's a lot of detail in how you could structure an amortization change. And so I totally agree with what you're saying. It's a really important thing, and I think that's why the whole idea of a task force to have a venue for expertise to be created, and then for to create buy-in with whatever ultimately is recommended.
Excellent. Thanks, Tim. Next item on the agenda is disability retirements. First up is Elizabeth Salisbury. Do we have a motion?
Motion Hamby. Seconded. Hamby.
So we have a motion to approve the disability for Elizabeth Salisbury based on the Medical Review Board. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. The next disability, excuse me, retirement is Perrin Scott. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
George. We have a motion and a second to approve the disability retirement for Perrin Scott based on the Medical Review Board recommendations. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, any other business to come before the board?
Mr. Chair, if I could just remind folks that November will be in person. We're really excited to see you, and we'll probably be sending out some information to make sure we know who's coming and some logistical details in advance. So just hope everyone's marking their calendars for November 12th. And then before that, of course, we're going to have our actuarial valuation on the 28th of October. That meeting will still be remote. We're hard at work on those valuations. Have not seen the any first results, so unfortunately I don't have any sneak peeks for anyone yet, but expect over the course of the next couple of weeks to be getting those, and we will certainly get the vals out to you as soon as we can. But so just wanted to put those two housekeeping items on everyone's radar.
Excellent, thanks. Any other items? All righty, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Was that Dan?
Dan seconded.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Hey, bye, everyone.
Stay warm. Put your woolies on tonight. It's going to be a chilly one.
There you go. Thanks, folks.
Take care.